I am 71 years old. That is not a metaphor, not a mood, not an exaggeration. It is a fact, like interest rates or gravity. At 71, the body keeps its own ledger. Knees remember stairs. Fingers remember cold. Sleep comes in pieces, like change handed back without asking. I wake up at 5:52 a.m. every morning. Not because I want to, because my bladder has stopped negotiating. Margaret used to joke that old age is just your organs unionizing. She died 5 years ago, and the joke outlived her. The first thing I do is sit on the edge of the bed and wait. I count to 30. If the room doesn't spin, I stand. If it does, I sit back down and pretend I meant to. Pride in my age is mostly about pacing. The room I sleep in used to be an office. That's what Karen calls it when guests ask. The office. Not his room. Not Dad's room. The office. Beige walls. A bed squeezed where a desk once was. One window that looks out onto the side yard and the neighbor's fence, which leans like it's tired of standing. My dresser is mine. Solid maple. I bought it in 1998 when Margaret insisted that particle board was an insult to adulthood. Everything else in the room belongs to the house. The bed frame, the lamp, even curtains. Karen replaced mine because they let in too much sun. I dress quietly. I've learned how to pull a shirt over my head without my shoulder clicking too loudly. I put on the same brown loafers I've owned for 12 years. The left one creaks. I like that. It announces me without asking permission. The hallway floorboard near the bathroom still squeaks. I paid a man $600 to fix that in 2014. He didn't. Or maybe it just learned a new way to complain. Houses do that. People too. The bathroom mirror shows me what time has been charging. Thin hair, liver spots, a face that looks like it's been folded and unfolded too many times. I brush my teeth slowly, watching my eyes rather than my mouth. Eyes tell the truth. Mine look awake but cautious, like a man who's learned that mornings are when mistakes happen. Downstairs, the kitchen is already warm. The Nest thermostat glows blue, 72 degrees. I don't touch it. I haven't touched it in years. Karen once said, half laughing, "Dad, the app tells me when it changes." After that, I stopped wondering if she was joking. My coffee maker sits at the far end of the counter. Old Cuisinart. Stainless steel with a dent on the left side from a move. The move. That's what everything circles back to. I measure the grounds carefully. 2 scoops. Level. Too much acid gives me heartburn. Too little makes the morning feel unfinished. The sound of the water heating is familiar, almost comforting. It reminds me of the old house on Alder Street, where mornings smelled like toast and Margaret's lavender soap. I sold that house in 2011. It went for $487,000. After fees and taxes, we cleared $441,203.18. I remember the number because Margaret made me repeat it twice to make sure I wasn't rounding. Michael and Karen were newly married then, pregnant, nervous, smiling in that way people do when they want help but don't want to ask out loud. "This way we're all together," Karen said, touching Margaret's arm like they were already family in the way that counts. "And it's just for now." The new house cost $420,000. Suburban, 2 stories, big kitchen. The down payment was $85,000. I wired it on March 18, 2011. At 10:42 a.m. Margaret was nauseous that morning. We thought it was nerves. It wasn't. I pour my coffee into my mug, the chip blue one I brought from the old house. World's best dad. The letters faded but legible. Karen hates that mug. Says it looks childish. I keep using it out of habit, not defiance. Defiance takes energy. I sit at the kitchen table. The oak one. I insisted on oak. Karen wanted glass. "It looks cleaner," she said. "Oak lasts longer. Or at least it's supposed to." At 6:47, I hear movement upstairs. Karen first. Always Karen first. Bare feet. Phone already in hand. Michael follows 10 minutes later. Already dressed. Already elsewhere. "Morning," I say. Karen hums without looking up. Michael nods, takes his travel mug, kisses her cheek. He pats my shoulder on the way out. A quick pat, like checking a pocket for keys. By 7:58, the house is quiet again. I sit there longer than I need to. hands wrapped around my mug, feeling the heat. 71 years old, widower, living in a house I helped buy, paying for utilities I barely use, sleeping in a room that isn't named after me. At the time, I thought this was what family looked like when I grew up. I didn't yet know how expensive that assumption would be. At 71, you learn to hear shifts in tone the way sailors read weather. Nothing dramatic at first, just pressure changes. A quiet warning that something is moving in, whether you're ready or not. It started with the mail. My envelopes used to land in a neat stack by my mug. Bank statements, pharmacy receipts, the occasional handwritten note from an old colleague who still believed stamps meant something. Then sometime last winter, they started appearing already opened, slid under my door, as if by accident. Sorry, Karen said once, not sorry at all. I thought it was ours. Ours is a word that grows teeth if you let it. The house had rules now, quiet ones. No one announced them, but I learned fast. Don't run the dishwasher during the day. Electricity costs more. Don't touch the thermostat. Don't leave lights on in rooms you're not actively using. Don't buy groceries that no one else eats. One morning, I brought home a loaf of rye bread, the good kind, caraway seeds. It cost $4.79. Karen held it up like evidence. This is expensive. I like rye, I said. Well, no one else eats it. She put it back on the counter anyway. Later that evening, it was gone. I found it in the garage freezer, already stale. Michael noticed none of this, or noticed and chose the softer sin. Silence. He worked long hours. Sales. Something about logistics. He liked to say numbers guy, though the numbers never seemed to stick around. Karen handled the house, the bills, the tone. By spring, I was paying my share. Utilities were split 3 ways, even though I showered once a day and turned off lights behind me like a trained child. Karen printed spreadsheets, highlighted cells, red for overdue, green for resolved. You're retired, she said once, tapping the page. So your income is fixed. We have to budget around that. It was said gently, like advice, like care. I paid without argument. Checks. On time. Always on time. 71 years teaches you that punctuality is mistaken for virtue. The argument came anyway. It was a Tuesday. It's always a Tuesday. Karen was reorganizing the pantry, pulling everything out with surgical energy. Bags of quinoa, protein powder, snack bars I didn't eat, my cans of soup, chicken noodle, tomato, 1 lonely beef barley. Ended up on the floor. You don't need this many, she said. There are 6 cans, I replied. She laughed. A small sound, dismissive. You're not living through the Depression. No, I said, but I remember people who did. Michael was standing by the fridge, scrolling through his phone. He didn't look up. I think it's time we rethink how space is used, Karen continued. This is a shared home. I bent to pick up a can. My knee complained, loudly. I paid for most of this house, I said. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I stated a fact the way you state your blood type. Karen finally turned to me, really looked at me. Her face changed. Not angry, not surprised. Certain, you don't own anything here. The sentence landed cleanly. No hesitation. No cruelty in the tone. That was what made it worse. It wasn't said to hurt me. It was said because she believed it. Michael shifted his weight, cleared his throat. Let's not escalate, he said, eyes still on his phone. Everyone's stressed. I waited. He didn't look up. Legally, Karen added, already turning back to the pantry. This is our house. Legally. That word stayed behind after they left for work. It hovered in the kitchen like steam you can't see but still feel on your face. I sat at the table for a long time, staring at the wood grain. Oak. Strong. Reliable. I had chosen it because I believed those qualities transferred. Upstairs, my room waited. The office. My things were where I left them. My dresser. My books. Margaret's photo on the nightstand. She was smiling in it, mid-laugh, hair caught by wind. She'd hated confrontations. Always said I should let things slide. She's young, Margaret would have said about Karen. Give her time. Time I had given. Money too. A lot of money. That afternoon, I pulled out the blue folder for the first time in years. Receipts. Statements. Old escrow documents. I spread them across the bed, carefully, like fragile bones. Something was missing. I couldn't say what yet, just that familiar tightening in the chest that comes when numbers don't line up and no one wants you to notice. At 71, you learn this too. When someone tells you that you own nothing, it's time to find out exactly what you do, and exactly who has been counting on you not to ask. There is a particular silence that settles over a house when you start looking for proof. It isn't dramatic. It doesn't announce itself. It simply waits, like dust, for you to disturb it. I began with a blue folder. It lived on the top shelf of my dresser, behind sweaters I no longer wore. Margaret used to tease me about that folder, said I treated paperwork like scripture. She wasn't wrong. When you grow up watching your father count coins at the kitchen table, you learn early that paper decides what's allowed. I laid everything out on the bed. The escrow statement from 2011, the wire transfer confirmation, $85000, sent March 18th at 10:42, y handwriting in the margin. Down payment. Checks to contractors. Roofing. HVAC. Kitchen remodel, Karen insisted, was non-negotiable once the baby arrived. $18,600. $21,400. $19,075. I added slowly twice. The total crept past $600,000 without drama. Numbers don't gloat. They just sit there. What I couldn't find was just as important. There was no quitclaim deed. No document transferring ownership from me to Michael. No signature I recognized that said I give this away. That absence bothered me more than Karen's words. The next morning, I went to the bank. Not the one Michael and Karen used. Mine. The old brick branch on Main Street, where the carpet smelled faintly of cleaning solution and time. The teller, Linda, had known me for years. She still called me Mr. Harris, even after I told her she didn't have to. "What can I help you with today?" she asked. "I need copies of some old transactions," I said, "from around 2011. She didn't sigh, didn't ask why. She just nodded and led me to one of the small glass offices, where privacy was more symbolic than real. While she printed, I watched people through the glass. A young couple arguing quietly over loan terms. A man my age clutching a folder tighter than necessary. Everyone in that building was negotiating with the future. Linda returned with a thick stack of paper. "There's a lot here," she said gently. "Yes," I replied. "There is." Back home, I spread the new papers alongside the old ones. Dates matched. Amounts matched. Purpose matched. The money trail was clear and stubborn. Ownership, however, was not. That afternoon, Karen texted me. "Karen, utilities went up again. Your share is $417 this month." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed OK and sent it. Silence is useful when people underestimate. I made an appointment with an independent title attorney the next day. Not recommended by anyone. I chose him because his office was small and his website looked outdated. Men who don't spend money on appearances tend to notice details. His name was Feldman, early 40s. Clean desk. No family photos. He listened while I talked. Didn't interrupt. Took notes in block letters. When I finished, he leaned back slightly. "We should order a title report." "How long?" 2 to 3 business days. "Do it." The waiting was the worst part. Karen became sharper, more efficient. She started referring to the house as ours out loud. Michael stopped meeting my eyes altogether. At dinner, conversation flowed around me like water around stone. One night, I heard Karen laughing upstairs, telling someone on the phone, "He doesn't even know how these things work." I lay awake staring at the ceiling fan, thinking about all the things I had paid for because I didn't know how they worked. The call came on a Thursday afternoon. "Mr. Harris, your title report is ready." I drove over immediately. Feldman handed me a stapled packet, thick and unimpressive. "Take your time," he said. I didn't need much. The house was held in a trust, created the same year we bought it, funded entirely by my money. The beneficiary listed in plain black text, Daniel Harris. I looked up. So I said, "What did that mean?" Feldman allowed himself a small smile. "It means the situation is not what they think it is." On the drive home, I stopped at a diner I hadn't been to since Margaret was alive. Ordered a cheeseburger and coffee. Ate slowly. Grease on my fingers. Sunlight on the windshield. I wasn't angry yet. I wasn't even satisfied. I was calm, and calm, I had learned at 71, was the most dangerous thing I could be. I did not tell them right away. That was the first decision that felt entirely mine in years. I slid the title report into a manila envelope and placed it in the blue folder, behind the escrow documents and contractor invoices. I returned the folder to the top shelf of my dresser, behind the sweaters, and closed the drawer carefully, as if noise itself might undo what I had just learned. That evening, Karen cooked pasta. Too much garlic. She had been cooking aggressively lately, like someone reclaiming territory. Michael talked about work, something about quarterly projections. I nodded at the right moments. No one asked me anything. At the end of the meal, Karen cleared plates with unnecessary force. "We need to talk about utilities," she said, standing by the sink. Michael stiffened. He knew that tone. I did too. "They're increasing again next month. Gas, water, everything. So we're going to rebalance." "Rebalance how?" I asked. She turned, drying her hands slowly. "You'll start paying a flat amount. Easier for everyone." "How much?" $600. I waited. "That's more than half." She smiled tightly. "You're home all day." Michael finally looked up. "Dad, it's just easier this way." Easier. That word again. I nodded once. "Okay," I said. Karen blinked. She had expected resistance, maybe even pleading. I could see the recalculation behind her eyes. Later that night, she knocked on my door. Didn't wait for an answer. "We're also thinking about converting this room back into an office," she said, leaning against the doorframe. "Long term." "Where would I sleep?" She shrugged. "We'll figure something out." After she left, I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time. 71 years old, widower, being told my room was provisional. I slept badly. Sunday came with forced cheer. Karen announced dinner with the enthusiasm of a hostess who expected applause. "Let's all sit down together tonight, like a family." She roasted salmon, bought wine she liked but never finished, set the table with the good napkins. The performance was deliberate. I waited until dessert. Karen was mid-sentence, talking about a co-worker's renovation nightmare, when I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the envelope. I placed it on the table, gently. No drama. "What's that?" she asked. "Paperwork," I said. Michael leaned forward first. He always did when there are papers. He opened the envelope, flipped through the pages. His face changed quickly. Confusion, and something like fear. Karen watched him, irritation growing. "What is it?" He didn't answer. He just slid the report toward her. She read fast. Faster than I expected. Her mouth tightened. She looked up at me. "What is this?" "A title report," I said. "On the house." Her laugh was sharp. "Why would you do that?" "To understand what I own," I replied. "You don't." She stopped herself. Looked back at the page. "Read again." Her finger traced a line of text. Michael swallowed. "Dad, what does this mean?" I folded my hands on the table. "It means the house is held in a trust, funded by my money. I'm the beneficiary." Karen stood up so fast her chair scraped loudly. "This is manipulation," she said. "You went behind our backs." "No," I said calmly. "I went to an attorney." Michael looked between us. "Karen, wait." She ignored him. "You said this was our house." "I said it was simply this way," I replied. "You said it was legal." Silence pressed in. Real. Karen's face flushed. "You're trying to scare us." "I'm trying to clarify," I said. "There's a difference." Michael sat back, hands on his thighs. "Why didn't you say anything before?" I looked at my son. Really looked at him. The boy I taught to ride a bike. The man who wouldn't meet my eyes. "You told me not to escalate," I said. No one spoke after that. Karen didn't touch her dessert. Michael drank his wine too quickly. The table, which I had chosen for its durability, absorbed everything without complaint. When I went upstairs that night, I slept better than I had in months. Not because things were resolved, but because for the first time since Margaret died, the truth was finally sitting in the open, and it wasn't on their side of a table anymore. If you believe older voices still matter, support this channel with a like and a subscription. The morning after the papers hit the table, the house felt different. Not louder, not hostile, careful. Karen didn't speak to me at breakfast. She moved around the kitchen with deliberate efficiency, as if I were a piece of furniture she intended to sell later. Michael sat with his phone angled too high, scrolling without seeing. The Nest thermostat glowed blue, unchanged. 72 degrees. I noticed that Karen checked twice. I paid the $600 that day. Not because I agreed with it, because I wanted the record clean. At 71, you stop confusing compliance with surrender. Sometimes paying is just paying. Sometimes it's bait. I called Feldman again after lunch. I'd like to move forward, I said. With what specifically? With everything. There was a pause, then a quiet, approving sound. All right, he said. We'll start formally. Formal is a word people fear because it doesn't shout. It sends letters. The first one went out certified mail on a Thursday. Notice of interest. Clarification of beneficiary rights. Dry language. No accusations. Just facts arranged so they couldn't be ignored. Karen received it at work. I know because she came home early. She didn't take off her coat. Didn't sit down. What is this? She demanded, waving the envelope like a summons. Mail, I said. You're doing this on purpose. Yes, I replied. Not loudly, not defensively. Michael stood behind her, pale. Dad, why now? I looked at him. Because now you know. Karen laughed, brittle. You think a piece of paper changes anything? It already has, I said. She called me selfish. She called me manipulative. She called me names Margaret would have scolded me for repeating. I let them pass through me. At my age, insults bounce if they don't land on truth. The second letter went to the bank. That one mattered. It notified them of the trust's beneficiary status and requested a review of the mortgage structure. Nothing aggressive, just enough to make a loan officer very uncomfortable. Michael's phone started ringing more after that. He tried to talk to me in the evenings. Soft voice, apologetic tone, the one he used as a teenager when he wanted to borrow the car. Can we work something out? He asked one night. We are, I said, through attorneys. Karen stopped cooking for me. My shelf in the fridge disappeared. My almond milk went missing. The rye bread I bought came home again, crushed at the bottom of a grocery bag like a message. I ate quietly. Soup, sandwiches, food that didn't need permission. The third letter was the one Karen didn't expect. Partition notice. Feldman explained it carefully. It's not eviction, he said. It's a legal step toward forcing a resolution, sale, buyout, or restructure. And if they refuse, then the court decides. Karen screamed when she read it. Not metaphorically. She actually screamed. A sharp panic sound that bounced off the walls she thought were hers. This is elder abuse, she shouted. No, I said. This is accounting. Michael begged then. Actually begged. Dad, please. We have a child. You can't do this. I felt something then. Not guilt. Memory. I remembered holding him at 3 years old. Feverish, terrified. Remembered paying his college tuition in 4 installments, because that's how bonuses came. Remembered refinancing Margaret's engagement ring when things were tight. I already did it, I said. A long time ago. The house filled with boxes after that. Karen started packing aggressively. Not because they were leaving. Because she needed control back. Drawers emptied. Closets labeled. Territory marked in tape and sharpened. I packed too. Slowly. Carefully. Margaret's things first. Then my books. Then the blue folder, which now lived in a locked briefcase under my bed. The sheriff's notice arrived on a Monday morning. Karen didn't believe it until she saw the seal. Michael sat on the stairs and put his head in his hands. I watched from a kitchen doorway. Calm. Clear. At 71, you learn another thing they don't teach you when you're young. Justice doesn't rush. It waits until the person who thought you were harmless finally stops smiling. The sheriff did not arrive with drama. No sirens. No raised voices. Just a white sedan pulling up at 9:14 a.m. on a clear Wednesday morning, parking neatly at the curb like it had every right to be there. Karen was on her third phone call of the day by then. I could hear her through the walls, pacing, voice sharp and rising, explaining the situation to someone who kept saying that doesn't sound right. And have you talked to a lawyer? She had talked to 3. None of them liked what they saw. Michael sat at the dining table staring at his laptop, not working. He hadn't been working much lately. His company had started asking questions. Banks tend to do that when paperwork shifts onto their feet. I sat in my room, the office, folding shirts into a small suitcase. Not because I was leaving. Because habits die hard. When you've spent decades preparing for worst-case scenarios, you don't stop just because the tide finally turns. The knock on the door was polite. Michael flinched like he'd been struck. Karen froze mid-sentence upstairs. Then silence, the kind that presses against your ears. "I'll get it," I said. My knees complained on the way down the stairs. I ignored them. Some moments are worth the ache. The sheriff introduced himself. Calm, professional. He handed me a folder, explained the notice, explained the timeline, explained my rights, though I already knew them better than he did. Karen appeared behind me, hair disheveled, eyes red. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "This is our home." The sheriff didn't look at her. He looked at me. "Sir," he said, "do you acknowledge receipt?" "I do," I replied. That was the moment Karen understood. Not the letters, not the lawyers. That moment. Her face changed, not anger now, but something closer to disbelief, as if gravity had betrayed her personally. Michael said nothing. He hadn't said much in weeks. Silence, I had learned, runs in families. The sheriff left. The sedan pulled away. The street returned to normal. Birds, a passing truck, a neighbor walking a dog who glanced a little too long. Karen turned on me. "You planned this?" "Yes," I said. "You let's think." "I let you say," I corrected gently. "There's a difference." She laughed, a sound that cracked halfway through. "You're 71. What are you going to do with a house this big?" I considered that. Truly considered it. "I'm going to decide," I said. The boxes multiplied after that. Real ones this time. Karen packed like she was fleeing a fire. Fast, careless, loud. Michael moved slowly, touching things like they might disappear if he blinked. At night, I heard them arguing behind their bedroom door. Money, blame. Who said what? Who assumed what? Who should have checked? No one mentioned me. That hurt more than the shouting. Feldman called every other day. Updates, deadlines, options. "They can buy you out," he said. "Fair market value. And if they can't, then we list." Karen tried one last time. She cornered me in the kitchen one afternoon, blocking the fridge with her body. "You don't have to do this," she said, voice low now. Calculated. "We can start over. Fresh." I looked at her carefully. The woman who had told me I owned nothing, who had charged me rent in a house I funded, who had measured my worth in utility usage. "Fresh," I repeated. "Yes, we'll be more respectful." I opened the fridge, reached past her, took out my almond milk. "You're not sorry," I said. "You're inconvenienced." She stepped back, as if struck. Michael left 2 weeks later, stayed with a friend. Karen followed soon after, taking what she could carry and everything she thought mattered. The house became quiet, not empty, quiet. I walked through every room slowly. The kitchen I paid to remodel. The stairs I'd climbed every day with groceries while my knees still pretended they were young. The living room where Margaret had sat during her last good winter, wrapped in a blanket, sunlight on her face. I stood there a long time. At 71, revenge isn't loud. It doesn't slam doors or raise voices. It restores weight to things that were taken lightly. And when I turned off the lights that night, all of them, without asking, I understood something clearly. Finally, they had lived in my house, but they had never lived with my patience. And patience, once exhausted, does not renew. When the house finally emptied, it did not feel victorious. It felt accurate. Silence returned the way it always does, slowly, testing whether it's welcome. I walked through each room with a yellow legal pad in my hand, not to reminisce, but to inventory. Cabinets, fixtures, minor damage. The practical work grief eventually turns into. Karen had taken the things that were loud. Decorative bowls, throw pillows, the espresso machine she never cleaned. Michael had taken quieter things. A framed photo from the hallway, the old ladder from the garage, a box of tax records he said he might need just in case. I let him. At 71, you stop arguing over items that only matter because someone else thinks they should. The realtor came the following week. Young woman, sharp suit. She walked the house with professional detachment, nodding at updates, making notes. "Good bones," she said. "Very marketable." Marketable. I almost laughed. We listed it at $689,000. Conservative. Realistic. Feldman advised patience. I'm not in a rush, I told him. And for the first time, that was true. Offers came in within 10 days. Some low, some insulting. One from a couple who wanted flexibility on possession, which meant living there for free after closing. I declined without explanation. Michael called once during that time. I didn't think it would end like this, he said. I was quiet for a moment. Neither did I. He waited for more. There wasn't any. The house sold in 37 days. $672,500. Clean offer. No contingencies. Cash. At closing, I sat alone at the table. The buyers shook my hand, smiled, excited. They asked if I had children. I said yes. They asked if they'd like the neighborhood. I said probably. No one asked who used to live there. The check cleared 3 days later. I paid off the remaining mortgage balance in full. I paid Feldman. I paid the realtor. I paid the taxes. I paid everything that had been waiting quietly in line. Then I sat at my kitchen table, my table now in a small rented apartment near the river, and looked at what remained. After everything, the number was still large enough to be useful. Not extravagant. Useful. A word Margaret liked. Michael didn't ask for money. Karen never called again. I bought a modest place 6 weeks later. 1 bedroom, 1 floor, no stairs, big windows, morning light. The inspection report was clean. The title report cleaner. I kept the blue folder. On move-in day, I carried my things myself. Books, clothes, the coffee maker, Margaret's photo. No one told me where I could put anything. That night, I sat in a folding chair in the living room, eating takeout lo mein from the carton, the kind with too much salt. I ate slowly, listening to the refrigerator hum, a sound I had learned to associate with safety. Michael called once more months later. Karen filed for divorce, he said. I didn't respond right away. I'm sorry, he added eventually. I considered that. The word. What it covered. What it didn't. I am too, I said, and meant something adjacent to it. After the call, I opened the window and let the evening air in. Cars passed. Someone laughed on the sidewalk. Ordinary life resumed without my permission. At 71, you learn that justice doesn't always feel like triumph. Sometimes it feels like balance. And balance, real balance, is quiet, solid, and finally yours to stand on. I turned 72 in October. No party. No cake shaped like a joke. Just a card from the pharmacy. A voicemail from my sister in Spokane. And a quiet morning that smelled like rain coming through an open window. I made coffee the same way I always had, 2 little scoops, water just off boiling, and sat at my small kitchen table watching steam lift and disappear. The new place had settled into me by then. 1 bedroom, 1 floor, no stairs to negotiate or curse at under my breath. The walls were a pale color the landlord called linen, which meant nothing and offended no one. The windows were big. That mattered. Margaret used to say light was the only thing you couldn't fake. I had put my furniture where I wanted it. That alone still felt unfamiliar. The dresser by the window. The books along one wall, not arranged by color or size, but by memory. The blue folder lived in the bottom drawer now, no longer hidden, no longer dangerous. Just paper again. On Sundays, I walked to the river. It wasn't exercise exactly, more like proof. Proof that my legs still worked, that the world kept moving without consulting my past. I watched couples argue quietly, parents negotiate with toddlers, old men like me sit on benches pretending not to be alone. Sometimes I imagined Michael there beside me, older than I expected him to look at his age, thinner, tired in a way I recognized. Other times, I didn't imagine him at all. We spoke occasionally, brief calls, polite, careful. He told me about the divorce in fragments, lawyers, mediation, how expensive silence becomes when it's billed by the hour. I listened. I didn't advise. Fathers don't get to do that forever. I didn't know, he said once, about the trust, about any of it. No, I replied. That was the truest thing either of us said. Karen never reached out. Not once. I didn't expect her to. People who build their lives on assumptions don't like evidence. One afternoon, while unpacking a box I'd been avoiding, I found Margaret's old recipe cards. Handwritten. Stained. Notes in the margins. Too salty. Try time next time. I sat on the floor and laughed. Then I cried. Then I made soup. It wasn't very good, but it was mine. At night, I slept without listening for footsteps above me. No muffled laughter. No whispered arguments. No sense that I was occupying space temporarily, at someone else's mercy. The first time I turned the thermostat up without asking, I stood there waiting for a comment that never came. 74 degrees. Just because I wanted it. There were moments, small ones, when doubt crept in, when I wondered if I'd gone too far. If being right had cost me something irreplaceable. Then I remembered the pantry floor. The sentence, "You don't own anything here." People forget that words have weight. At 71, you feel it immediately when they land. I didn't win anything in the end. Not really. I reclaimed time, space, the right to sit at a table without proving my usefulness, the right to age without asking permission. On the night before my birthday, I placed Margaret's photo on the windowsill. The streetlight caught the glass just right, and for a moment it looked like she was about to say something. I handled it, I told her. Not perfectly, but honestly. The refrigerator hummed. The building settled. Somewhere a door closed softly. I went to bed without setting an alarm. At this age, the future isn't something you conquer. It's something you stop surrendering. And that, I have learned, is more than enough.